Okay, let's look at some sample problems using isosceles triangles. I think you'll recognize these straight out from your study guide. We're trying to find x for each one of these. Look at this one, it's sideways. We know that this angle here is going to be equal to this angle. Why? Because the angles opposite congruent sides are congruent. We know that this is 40 degrees. So we know that this here is going to be 2x. So 2x plus 2x plus 40 equals 180. Let's combine like terms, so 4x plus 40 equals 180. Subtract the 40. We have 4x equals 140. Divide by 4, we have x equals, what, I don't know. Divided by 2 would be 70. Divide that by 2 would be 35 degrees. Put it in there and see if it works. 70 plus 70 is 180. 2 times 35 equals 70. 2 times 35 equals 70. 70 plus 70 plus 40 equals 180. Okay? Here's another one. We've got two angles that are congruent. We're also given expressions for the sides opposite those angles. So what do we know about the sides opposite congruent angles? Well, guess what? They are congruent. By what? Converse of the isosceles triangle theorem. So we can set those equal to each other. So 2x, let's do this another way. Let's look at 3x minus 6 equals 2x plus 6. So minus 2x equal x minus 6 equals 6. Add 6 plus 6, x equals 12. So let's put it in there. 2 times 12 plus 6. What is that? 24 plus 6 is, I think, 30. So let's look at this one. That would be 3 times 12 minus 6 equals 36 minus 6 equals 30. Okay? So check that out. That's how you would work that one. This one right here, we're given that this is a perpendicular or a right angle. So we know that this right here equals 90 degrees. Well, we're given that these two sides are congruent. What do we know about this angle right here? The angles opposite congruent sides are congruent. So that means this right here is congruent to this one, so this has to be 3x. Well, the acute angles of a right triangle are complementary. Learned that earlier. So basically 3x plus 3x has to equal 90 degrees. 6x equals 90 degrees. Divide by 6, divide by 6. X has to equal, what is it? 15. 3 times 15 equals 45. 3 times 15 equals 45 degrees. 45 plus 45 plus 90 is 180. This one's a little different. We know that this is an isosceles triangle. We know this is an isosceles triangle. Don't really need to know this over here. Whatever. We know this angle is 6x plus 6. What do we know about this angle right here? Well, because of the vertical angle theorem, those two angles are congruent. So this is 2x right here. What do we know about these two angles? Because they're opposite congruent sides, they are congruent, so this is 6x plus 6. Interesting, let's stack these together. We've got 6x plus 6 is one angle. 6x plus 6 is another angle. And then we have 2x. Let's add all those together. Add the 6's, we have 12. Plus 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 2, 14x. And what does that equal? The three angles of a triangle equal 180 degrees. Well, let's work on that. Let's subtract the 12 minus 12 come up with 14x equals, oh, what is that, 78? 178 would be 168. Okay, so let's take it up here. 14x equals 168. So let's divide everything by 14. X is going to equal, 14 will go into 16. 1 time with 2 left over. 2 and 8 is 28, so that would be 2. Let's try it and see. 2 times 12 would be 24. 6 times 12 plus 6. What's 6 times 12? That's what? 72 plus 6, so this would equal 78. That means this has to be 78. Well, 78, let me see, let's go over here. 78 plus 78 plus 24. 16 plus 4 is 20. Carry the 2. Oh, 9 and 9 is 180 degrees. Okay? It's a way to look at that one. Now let's look at this one. We've got a right triangle. We know that these two angles are congruent. We also know that this right here, these two sides are congruent, which means this here has to be congruent to this one because congruent sides are opposite congruent angles. This is 30, this is 90. It's a right triangle. What do we know about the acute angles of a right triangle? They're complementary. 30 plus what equals 90? This is going to be 60 degrees. So all of a sudden we're looking over here that this must be 60 degrees. Oh, this one must be 60 degrees. Well, what does that tell us about that angle there? Well, it's also congruent. This ends up being a what? An equilateral triangle because this is also 60 degrees. So we end up with 3x equals 60. Divide by 3, divide by 3. X equals, I think that is 20. Plug it in. 3x equals 60 degrees. Okay? This one right here. The vertex angle. This is the vertex angle. Okay, so angle T. Vertex angle. Okay, that's the vertex angle. Well, that means this is the base angle over here. Base angles are congruent because they're opposite congruent sides. So that means this has to be congruent to this one. So this is also x. So we've got 3x plus x plus x equals 180. So we end up with 3, 4, 5. 5x equals 180. Let's divide by 5. X equals, I think that would be 16. Plug it in. 3 times 16 would be 48. Whoa. No, that's not right, is it? Let's try again. Five, that will go 3. And 30 would be 6. So that is x equals 36 degrees. Let's get that right. 36 degrees is not half of it. It is 36, okay? So, this is 36. This is 36. That's 72. Okay, add those two together. That's 72. So what's 3x got to be? Oh, let me see. 36 times 3 is 8. 9, 10. 108. Okay, we're multiplying that. Now let's add 72. What do we get? 180 degrees. Okay, some sample problems. Showing you how to do those. Work on those. We're going to do a few more. Okay, let's look at some other problems. These deal with a certain type of isosceles triangle, and that is an equilateral triangle. Okay, so let's look at this. If a triangle is equilateral, we also know that all of its angles are equal. Therefore, if all the angles are equal, we know each one of those equals 60. So 6x equals 60 divided by 6. X equals 10. Okay? Check it out. Whatever else. If the triangle is equal angular, then it is also equilateral. Therefore, all the sides are equal, so 6x minus 5 equals 5x. Subtract 5x from both sides. Okay, so we end up with x minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides. We end up with x equals 5. Okay, put it in there. 30 minus 5 equals 25. Okay? Now, the next one is a little different. We know that this is an equilateral triangle. Well, if we know that's an equilateral triangle, we know this angle equals that angle equals that angle. One of the things we talked about is if we have a perpendicular drop from the vertex, okay, to a base, then that makes these congruent. These are congruent. This is an equilateral triangle, so those are congruent. Therefore, these two sides are congruent. These two angles are congruent right here. That's congruent to that. So therefore, we can take 60, divide it by 2. So 3x equals 60 divided by 2. So 3x equals 30. So 3x equals 30. Divide everything by 3. X equals 10. Okay? That's that real important relationship between all those angles and this perpendicular bisector. This one looks extremely complicated, and they've thrown some stuff in there to try to confuse you. They've given you the measurement of an angle. Do we need the measurement of that angle? No, we don't need the measurement of that angle. We can tell what the measurement of that angle is because we're looking at a side over here. 4x is this side right here. Well, what do we know? All of these sides are equal. So what does 4x equal? Well, they've got 40 right there, so 4x equals 40. Divide by 4, x equals 10. Okay? Now, this one takes a little thinking about. They're showing us an isosceles triangle. Got two legs. X is the vertex. 60 is the vertex angle. Okay? So 60 is the vertex angle. And we've got two sides that are equal. We know that these two added together then 180 equals 60 plus, let's call this x, and let's not call it y, x. Let's call it a, and a equals 2a. So 120 equals 2a, a equals 60. Oh wow, this is a 60-degree angle. This is a 60-degree angle. Oh wow. Guess what? They're all 60-degree angles. What do we know about that? This base is equal to that. Anytime you have a vertex angle of an isosceles triangle that is equal to 60, you know you have an equilateral, equiangular triangle. Just go there with that. So we have 4x minus 4 equals 3x plus 8. Subtract 3x minus 3x. Okay, we end up with x minus 4 equals 8. Add 4 plus 4. X equals 12. Put it in there. That would be 48 minus 4 equals 44. 12, that would be 36 plus 8 equals 44. Okay? Now let's look at this one. This one is a little different. Alright? We have to use several things. We've got this thing here that says that these two sides here are perpendicular. So what I've done is I've drawn some auxiliary lines here so that we can see the different transversals that come across this thing. Different transversals that cut this thing. Okay, we've got one here, we've got another one here, we've got one here, we've got one here. Okay, so if this is 60, let's get this thing taken care of. We've got two congruent sides. What do we know about the angles opposite congruent sides? They are congruent. Wow, I've got two 60-degree angles. If I've got two 60-degree angles, what's this one right here? It's 60 degrees. Big deal. But let's look at this thing right here. Okay, what can we tell about any of this? Well, we've got this. Look at this right here. Here's a parallel line, here's a parallel line. What's the relationship between this angle and this angle right here? They are alternate interiors. What do we know about alternate interior angles? They are congruent. So this is a 60-degree angle. Wow, look at this right here and look at this right here. Opposite, so this 4x right here has to equal 60. So we've got 4x equals 60. Divide by 4, divide by 4, x equals, I think, 15. Okay, this one's a little tricky. You've got to look at it. Intuitively know, wow, this is an equilateral triangle. If I can prove that any one of these is 60 degrees, I'm home free. Okay? How do we prove it? Have to look at it. It's a complex drawing. Have to look at it, but you've got alternate interior angles. Okay? And these alternate interior angles are congruent. If this is 60 degrees, it's opposite congruent. So this 4x is opposite congruent sides with this 60. Therefore, 4x has to equal the 60 and go from there. Okay? You're going to see these on your test. I'd practice these, look at them, and work on your homework on this. We're going to do a couple of proofs and we'll be through with isosceles.